When you find a real estate platform that aligns everyone in the entire company financially by making us real estate agents owners, so when the average agent wins, everyone wins, that's the secret to success. And when you surround yourself with like-minded entrepreneurial people who absolutely love what they do, they love serving people, they love God and life, and you put yourself in an environment of high energy, high producing, positive people every day, you can't help but succeed in business and life. We are changing the real estate industry and changing real estate agents' lives. Welcome to the Financial Freedom Forever podcast.
Welcome everyone to the Financial Freedom Forever podcast. I'm super excited to be introducing you guys to Noelle NIELSEN from the Twin Cities, Minnesota. Welcome, Noelle.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
You guys are in for a treat. I'm excited to get to know Noelle better, and she's become friends of mine just from being in our beta group, which is an influencer group at EXP. She was a RE/MAX agent, a broker, owner of her own independent company, an attorney. She got a long list of accolades. I'm just going to let her kind of share her story and tell us a little bit about her background. And you guys are in for a treat. Obviously, as a lawyer, a master negotiator. So I know that's, I think, how we titled the podcast. But yeah, welcome, Noelle, and let's just jump right in and tell us your background and your real estate background and so forth.
Yeah, so thanks for having me. I kind of have an unusual background, but that's the cool thing about real estate is almost all realtors have a story, right? And they have an unusual background. It's very rare that you find somebody that says, yep, I graduated from high school and just started doing real estate. Right. Now, there are those people out there, but I found that one of my favorite things about real estate is hearing other realtors' stories, right? So I love coming on podcasts like this one and just sharing my story and getting to maybe motivate other people that might find things that they can resonate with in another person's story. Right. So yes, I am an attorney by trade. I did go to law school. I did work as a lawyer for a while. And to my parents' chagrin, I actually graduated from law school at a really difficult time to get a job as a lawyer. And luckily, both my husband and I, we met in law school. We got married during law school. We were both very fortunate that we walked away from law school with great jobs as lawyers. My problem was I really wasn't in love with being a lawyer. And I have another side of my brain that I like using, which is a creative side. And so during law school, I started a photography business as like a creative outlet. And I basically started this photography business just as a side thing for fun because I needed like an outlet away from the books and away from drafting documents. Being a lawyer is not what people like think it is on TV. It's really not that. It is researching and documenting things and learning how to craft a story, right? And craft your argument. And that is really the effective negotiation piece all comes from how do you learn someone else's story and how do you tell your own story, right? So I was doing that during the day. And then during the night, I was telling stories through taking photos and taking pictures of people and hearing what their story was and then visually describing it with photos. And that ended up taking off for me. And within probably 2 years of having graduated from law school, my photography business was actually paying me more than my lawyer job. And I had to come to a crossroads of, do I do both things? Do I pick one? And so I picked the entrepreneurial route to everyone else's dismay. Like the partners at my firm really struggled with my choice. My parents struggled with that decision. Sure. But I knew that I couldn't sit behind a computer for the rest of my life. And so I went ahead and started this business. And about 6 to 7 years in, I realized that it wasn't a super duplicatable business. I opened up a photography studio. I was gone every weekend. And, there's a lot of relatable things between being a lawyer in being a wedding photographer because you are gone on the weekends, you are gone in the evenings, and you are at the mercy of your clients. And so I decided to escape the wedding photography business. I had hit the pinnacle. I was actually photographing an NFL player's wedding. And I'd hit the pinnacle. Like, I was making amazing money doing what I was doing, but it was a very physical job. And I couldn't find someone else to have my same vision with doing photography. So I came home from that wedding and signed up for real estate school, basically. And I basically
What year was this?
This was in about 2014. I got my license in 2014 officially. And I know it because I was pregnant with my third baby at that time. And so for any of these moms out there that are like struggling, the mom that's trying to make it in real estate and like struggling with having little kids at home and trying to find the balance between helping your clients and being a mom at home, it's doable. If I could do all of that stuff while having babies and no childcare, you can do it too. And that's one of the things that I love. I love encouraging moms or just parents in general to go out and do it and to make it work. You find ways to make it work. So I got my license, and then for the next 2 years, tried to figure out how to make the transition, because I was making such great money as a photographer. And that's what my clients saw me as. And one thing that you're going to see with my story is I had a book of business that followed me through each area I went through. When I started photography, the people I was photographing, they were other lawyers, right? They were all the lawyers that I had just gone to law school with that were finally getting married, and they had some money to spend, right?
Awesome,
and so they would pay me great money to take their photos. And then I had to shift their mindset over to follow me as a realtor and take their book of business. Okay, now they got married. Now they were going to be buying houses, right? And some of them were buying move-up houses and selling houses. So I had to articulate the story and change their direction of how they viewed me with that journey, right? So I started using social media to showcase, hey, I'm a realtor. Hey, don't look at me as a photographer anymore. I stopped putting up my photo shoots and I started putting up pictures of houses and pictures of going through houses. If it was a weekend and I had nothing to do, I was out touring new construction. I was out touring luxury new construction because I knew that that was what I wanted to sell. So I needed to put myself in those houses and showcase it on social media. And so finally, my clients, they also weren't super excited that I wasn't going to be taking their photos anymore. And it was really hard to say no to that. But I had to get to the point where I started saying no to get them to start realizing that they needed to follow me in this new direction. And I think for a lot of people that are trying to make that transition out of part-time into full-time real estate, at some point you have to take the leap of faith and you have to say no to the direction that you're tired of and say yes to the new direction and move forward with the leap of faith and bet on you, right? That you can do it. And so that happened. I started saying no and said yes to real estate. I started to really take my business seriously as a realtor. And at that time, I had bounced around from a couple of different brokerages that I won't name what they were, but they were big franchises that were known for training and education. And I got none of it. Like, none of that was helping me get my business going. And then I started at a Remax. And honestly, for me, coming out of that franchise model, I all of a sudden got it. It was part of who I was surrounded with when I was at that brokerage. And I was paying a lot of fees to be at that brokerage. And so I started taking it seriously. I had to make my monthly payment, right? I had to make that happen. And so I started emulating people that were actually making it successful. And one of the key things for me was duplication. That was the reason why I had walked away from wedding photography, was because I couldn't duplicate myself. And I did not want to get caught in that scenario again in real estate, right? And the best way to have duplication is to figure out running a team, figure out running a brokerage, figure out some kind of system, right, where you can duplicate your efforts and have a miniature army. So I put out a business card. Normally I have a copy of the same with me, but I don't have it today. I put out a business card with my son. He was 5 at the time. I put him in a red suit. I personally was used to being behind the camera. I did not want to be on the camera. So I was very uncomfortable with showing my face, which is ridiculous and stupid. And I coach people about it now that don't be that person. But I used my son and I started calling him Realtor Boy. And we made this whole campaign. I bought him a little red suit. I actually had it custom made for him. We videoed the whole thing at the suit makers, and like it was embroidered in the collar. He had his own business cards. And I had him go out and say, hey, my mom is starting a team. Reach out to my mom if you want to be a part of a team. And within like 2 months, I had an instant team. I had like 10 agents that had been following me on social media that wanted to be a part of that. And so we started this team, and the team grew very rapidly, obviously. And we outgrew our office space that I was paying a lot of money for. And so I went to my broker at that time and said, hey, I need help here. We've outgrown the space. We were annoying everybody in the hallway. I'm sure you know one of my, at the time, teammates. His name is Blake Suddeth, who is now in our beta group at EXP. So he was my teammate at that time. He's very loud, very excited, and we needed more space. So I started looking outside of our office franchise space for our own space that we could own and do what we wanted with. And as I started that, I realized, wait, we might as well just start our own brokerage. Like this, if I'm already going to be paying for a space and like furnishing it and whatnot, let's just start our own brokerage. So that was in about 2018. We ended up starting our own brokerage.
So in 2018, when you started your brokerage, how many agents did you have, and about how many units were you doing?
Yep. So we had about 10 agents on the team. I mean, I can't even tell you how many units we were doing as a team, because I was so fluid at that time. I was our top producer, and I individually was probably doing between 15 and 18 million a year. I mean, I wasn't like a mega agent or anything. I was just a good agent that had found family balance and was teaching that to my other agents. And I've never run my team really to track total team volume. I always just let the agents put their own names on their own stuff. And I would put my own name on my stuff. I've changed this system a little bit now. But at that time, I was flying by the seat of my pants. I didn't pay attention to anyone else. I was just doing what I felt like I wanted to do. And I knew I needed a team, and it was working. Like everybody was selling. We were all doing great. My brand new teammate that had joined me that year, Blake, who I just mentioned, he came in and did 40 deals himself that year through our lead systems that we were running. We were all in. Like I had Zillow, I had all the stuff. And so fast forward, we opened up the brokerage. At that time, I had 10 agents, and within 6 months, we were at 20. We doubled. We had a couple teams that joined us, and we had a couple of solo agents that joined our independent brokerage. And they had everything that they could have. I was running Follow-Up Boss for the whole brokerage. We had leads provided to the entire brokerage. We had a whole bunch of different systems, and it was going really well. I had a full-time videographer on staff. I had a full-time like admin on staff, and they had free office space. Okay, they had everything. And one day, one of my other top producing agents came into my office, and he had left a big brokerage to come join me. And he came in and he said, hey, love you, love this, love what we have going on here. But I'm getting my license in Florida. And if you don't figure out how to get your broker's license in Florida, I got to leave you. And that was a bad day for me. I went home that day thinking to myself, what have I done? Like, I just took out all this overhead. I just took on all this risk. I just gave them everything, and it's out of my control. I didn't have my broker's license long enough in Minnesota to go get it in Florida. And I didn't want to have to like go down there and try to figure out getting my license there and then trying to get my broker's license. Like, for those of you that have never been an independent broker, you can't just like go get your broker's license in any state. There are rules in states where they have rules in place. So my hands were tied. I couldn't go get my license there. And so I was trying to figure out what I was going to do, because the perception of such a big agent joining me and then leaving me in 6 months could potentially put me out of business as a broker, right? People were going to look, they were going to ask questions. And it just was one of those things where I was so scared of him leaving that I had to come up with a solution. So I went home that night and I was talking to my husband, and my husband said to me, "Are you ready to look at EXP yet?" And I wanted nothing to do with EXP. To me, my pride was not going to take on the brokerage of EXP. The brand was terrible. The little icon-y house thing, and like, the brand's great now. It's totally been revamped and I love it now. But at the time, it did not match the brand I had. It didn't match what I wanted from my agents. And I had a lot of pride around this thing that I had magically created. And it was mine, my own thing. Like, why would I take that and move it on to somebody else's platform, right? But my husband is very intelligent, and he had already created a spreadsheet. He already was looking at numbers. He already was showing me how it was going to work for our agents, because he knew that I'm such an empath that if I realized that it was going to be a better fit for our agents, that I couldn't say no to it. And so he then basically showed me these spreadsheets and showed me where our agents would be at if they actually came into the model and took advantage of it, where we would be at as an independent brokerage. And on top of it, at that time, I was doing a lot at a national level, going around and coaching on social media and talking about social media, that I wasn't really taking advantage of the framework that I had built for myself with agents around the country. And there was no way I could have, again, like, opened up around the country. So we had that conversation on like a Monday in our house. On like Wednesday and Thursday, I started talking to my big agent saying, "Hey, I think we might do something crazy, and I need you guys to look at this, and I want you to be on board with it, and I hope you trust me." And Sunday night, we all got together at the office. We met. We watched the model explained all together. They had lots of questions. And Monday morning, we switched. Wow. I did not give my agents very much time. And that's kind of how we do our life, really, is we make fast decisions. And once we're in on something, we're usually all in on it. And so that's kind of the story. All of the agents came with us. We had 20 at the time. All 20 came. I think the trick was that I didn't give them enough time to have time to go around and interview and think about other options, right? And they kind of were at our mercy, and they trusted us. And they knew that I wouldn't make a decision that was detrimental for them. And to this day, pretty much all of those agents are still with us, which is amazing, including the guy who wanted to get his license in Florida. Yep, it solved the problem for him. My primary teammate, Blake, who I've talked about, I love telling his story. He was very, very upset about this idea, very angry about the move, did not want to make this transition. He, to this day, is my biggest group at EXP. He eventually got on board. It took him a couple of months to see it. And I think a lot of times when brokers or team leaders come over, their people look at it like, well, you're doing this for you. You're not doing this for me, right? And so they're very angry sometimes with the decision. But once they start looking at it for themselves and stop thinking about it from the eyes of their team leader or their broker's role, but looking at it from their own perspective and what they can accomplish with it, all of a sudden the world opens up for them. And anything is possible, right, for those people. And so I guess effective negotiation, right, can happen with painting a great story and learning how to master your story and tell your story and help others visualize their own story within your story.
That's amazing. I love it. Yeah, that's a lot of great background. Hey, that's amazing. I mean, being able to, from starting a team with your son, I mean, that's brilliant. and then being able to, start your own independent brokerage, and why you really looked at EXP. Sound like you weren't interested at all. You said your husband said, "Are you ready now to look at it?" Because he was obviously looking at it. I'm sure being a top producer, people were reaching out to you. But yeah, it's that a lot of it is the pride. Hey, we built this thing. Even if I know a lot of brokers that, they're, let's say, not bringing home as much income as they would like to compared to what it looks like because they have a big team selling a lot of houses. But
it's all in the perception. And that's one of those things too, like, okay, the market right now is tricky. If people want to deny that it's tricky, then they're living in a different world, because the market's tricky right now. And it's perception is everything. And so the perception that you are seeing as an agent, and I'm talking to agents now, when you're watching other agents online, or you're watching other top producers online, or you're seeing people post about their production stats or whatever, you also need to keep in mind that there's P&L statements behind the scenes of what is their actual profit and what is their money that is going out, because at the end of the day, a small producer might actually be more profitable than an independent broker that's trying to like keep it all together and has bills going out in every direction, trying to keep all their people happy and keeping up with the technology that's being offered by platforms like EXP. Honestly. And I honestly think if we had not made the move back then, we could have probably been put out by it, because all my people that move with me are thriving on this platform now, right? And somebody else would have told them that story had I not been the one to do it.
What did your expenses? I gotta believe that they went down quite a bit because you were providing a lot of the the technology and the systems that now, of course, EXP provides for us. Did you ever do the math on that, either before or making the move or now?
Yeah, I mean, that was part of our plan. So it's hard for anyone that has physical office space and a model set up on that strategy of like, hey, I'm going to have agents come in. They're going to pay us monthly for this space. That's going to be part of their fee to make that transition. Luckily, my husband is a business attorney, right? And he's advising people all day long on how to structure deals and put things together. And it's the same thing when we're doing a real estate deal, trying to help people, especially if you start getting into like really high-end deals and you're negotiating, which we're not technically supposed to do, but you're negotiating furniture and back and forth, and you're adding things in, right? And so when you're strategizing as like, say you're an independent broker and you're listening to this story, and you're trying to figure out, how could I do that? How could I even do that? I have all these expenses that I am tied to. There's no way that I could actually do that. Well, you've got to look at it like you're structuring a business deal for yourself to make the transition into not having all those bills, right? And so working with your agents on a strategy of making a transition and figuring out what fees they might still be willing to pay to be a part of your group. So like I still offered office space to my group for a while, and they helped cover the cost of that to have access to the office space. And so we got kind of clever with how we worked that into our transition. And then we just also kind of knew we might take a hit initially for the first like 6 months or the first year and a half to finish out our lease and some of the other things that we were tied to. I live now 3 hours away from the market that I was in at that time. And that's another piece of my story. But the stinking copy machine that I put under contract when I opened up my brokerage is still sitting in this space. I had to haul it with me. I am still paying like $300 a month for this dumb copy machine that I had taken on when I was a broker, right? And so some of those expenses, they are going to follow you, but not for your lifetime. Like you've got to figure out how to make that transition and be smart about it and figure out other solutions to pay the bills to get you out of that position. And so, yeah, my expenses are way lower today than they were then. We transitioned off of Follow Up Boss and onto KV Core, which we have here at EXP. We transitioned out of that space. Now I have a space still because I actually need one. I live on a farm where we have satellite internet. And so like a day like today, it doesn't work great for StreamYard. And so I just personally need a space. So that's an expense that I can budget into my business planning for myself to have a space. Just because you join a virtual brokerage doesn't mean that you have to let go of some of those things if you really, really want it. But I always tell people and challenge them, do you actually want it or need it? Right. And I think COVID kind of showed us that whole time showed us that we don't necessarily need a physical office space to get our work done. My days are so much more effective having my meetings on Zoom. I can move from meeting to meeting to meeting without a drive or a transition or an awkward goodbye. And I can get 4 or 5 more meetings into my day than I could have when it was all happening in person.
Yeah, and now you said three hours away from your everyday market. So I'm sure EXP had that their model had something to do with that, right?
Yeah. So I grew up in a small town in rural Minnesota. And of course, when I was going to law school, I transitioned into city life and city living, and we started having kids, and my husband was working at a big firm downtown. I had a full real estate business based around this geographical location. And, you know, that's one of those things. So many people get into real estate because they want freedom. And what they end up doing is handcuffing themselves, 1, time-wise, 2, location-wise. Like, it's really hard to get outside of a particular market when that's where all your clients are. And I started to realize that and feel that really as we were opening the brokerage. And I mean, I knew it, but it was just, what were my other options at that point? I was already all in. And so once we had made the transition over to EXP, and I saw how well my agents were doing with that transition, and it started working for me, we started kind of growing our group. Our primary group is still here in Minnesota, but I've got now agents all around the country. And when everything happened and everything shut down, and on top of it, the Twin Cities were literally on fire because there was a lot of political unrest that was happening at that time, I, as realtors tend to do, opened up the MLS and was just sort of daydreaming about where could we go? Like, could we get a cabin up north? Like, could we go do something? And I opened it up, and the most perfect, beautiful farm was sitting right in front of me. And I knew it was really underpriced, and I was never going to find this property again. So we went up. I told you, we make fast decisions. It was not part of our plan, but we drove up that day to go look at it and made an offer on it that day with no contingencies. And the next day I got the call basically saying, hey, the property is yours. And so we transitioned our whole entire lives and moved 2 hours. This is 2 hours away. My office now is an hour from where I live. My office is in Duluth, Minnesota. For those of you guys that are familiar with the lakes, it's on the tip of Lake Superior. And we live the country life. We had a goat farm, which we've also now transitioned away from. We say yes a lot. And then when we realize that the yes isn't working for us, we move into a new yes, right? And we're really good at making transitions and trying things and living life. You only get one life to live. And so, yes, all because of EXP, we were able to do that. Without EXP, there was no way we would have been able to make that transition that quickly and that easily. And it's really cool. We've got 3 kids. They're still under the age of 11 and under, and they also get to experience that freedom that we have of being able to move, being able to live in the country, being able to travel if we want to. And there's really nothing else that could have allowed us that.
That's amazing. So what size is your office team size now, and your entire EXP group size?
Yeah. So for a little while, obviously with that transition and the move, we ended up retiring the brand that I had been running. And, this is another conversation that I have often with people, like, don't get so tied to one thing just because you created it and it worked in one moment, because that might not be the best thing that you could have in front of you. And so I see agents often getting so tied to a brand, whether it's their own brand or another company's brand, that they choose not to make a decision that could benefit themselves and their families in a much bigger way because they're tied to some identity that's not even really the one that they're supposed to be walking with. So we had this brand when I had my brokerage and it was part of our team. We ended up retiring that brand and I let it rest for a little bit. And last spring, we opened up a new brand for a new sales team called Minnesotan. And my goal is to have agents all around the state, wherever they are, be able to help clients coming in. And it's a fun brand. It's also going to be, we're just very Minnesotan. I'm sure you can hear it in my accent. I get asked about wherever we go. And so instead of like trying to deny it, I've embraced it. It's never going anywhere. This accent's going to follow me for the rest of my life. And then, so that team now today is at about 24 agents. And then my group with EXP is at about 545 agents. So it's grown exponentially for sure.
And do you know how many different markets that you're in now instead of just being in the Twin Cities? Do you know?
I should know. We have access to stats where they've shown us the map of the country. I'm sure you've done that meeting. And I've got dots everywhere, all around the country. I mean, I was actually kind of surprised where some of the dots were showing up, but we literally have agents everywhere. We've got a really big contingency in Florida, in Texas, and in Kansas City, Arizona, California, Iowa, Wisconsin. Ugh, we've got cheeseheads in our group. I mean, we've got them all around the country, but my probably about half of my group is still here in Minnesota.
So if that top agent that was telling you, hey, they're moving to Florida, if that went to happen and he was, going to stay with you forever, would you have ever looked at EXP?
It's hard to know. I'm sure I probably would have seen it at some point, and I'm sure somebody would have like really come hard at me. I had been, people had tried to bring me to EXP before we even started the brokerage, right? People had brought the model to me a couple of times. And, it's the age old thing of like, oh, I should have said yes then, right? But I'm not one of those people where I'm like, oh, I should have said yes then, because I'm really glad that I had that experience, because I probably always would have had the, oh, what if I had just started my own thing. And instead, no, I started my own thing. And no, I'm really glad that I didn't stick with my own thing. And I had that experience to be able to move forward with my EXP experience, because I am so passionate now about what EXP can do for people and how it can help people out of a bad situation or a situation where they just feel like they have no other options. That's just really enhanced my experience of like, I kind of live life with the whole, I'm sure you've seen the meme of like the tattoo of no regrets, right, where the guy gets a tattoo and it's spelled wrong. That's how I live my life. No regrets.
That's awesome. What would you say to a broker owner like yourself that was, they built this thing from scratch, things are going well, and they're just not really open-minded and looking to make a move because things are okay. Knowing what you know now, what would you say to a broker like that?
Things are okay. That's not good enough. Like, are you living your best life? And, some of them are going to say yes to you, but in their minds, they're going to be thinking, well, what if I did? What if I did make the switch? Right. And that's why I keep saying the perception on the outside and what you're hearing and seeing from people sometimes is not what they're saying to themselves in the back of their head. Right. And so I try to find wherever that inner voice is and speak to the inner voice. Right. Don't let your pride get in the way of an opportunity that could change your life or change your kids' lives or change the lives of your agents. My agents today are having a much different experience than I ever could have provided them. And, you asked me earlier if I was going to be at shareholders this this spring, I've been an event junkie, basically, where I've gone to every single EXP event that I could go to. I've studied it like it was my job. I've listened to other people's stories and kind of found like key points in people's stories that might help me when I'm having a conversation with somebody else that is struggling, right? Because my story might not resonate with all people, but somebody else's story might resonate with them. And so if I can be a connector of people to resonate those stories for each other, that's really, and back to like being an effective negotiator, that's, if you learn this business and you learn other people's stories and you understand why people are making the moves to come over, like every single one of my agents that came with me back then, all of their stories are a little different. Even though we all went through that move together, as a unit, every person had their own individual choice to come with us. And so each of their reasons for coming over was a little bit different from the other. And it's the same thing with an independent broker, right? Like one independent broker might come over because they just want out. They want to be done. They're tired of cutting checks at 7 p.m. on a Friday night when their desperate agent comes in and says, hey, I know you had a birthday party to go to, but I need a check. Or they might just be coming because they know that they can have a bigger impact on agents around the country instead of just in their one little town or their one little city at their one little office, right? And so it all depends on what is their ultimate goal and how are they going to retire, because brokers are not getting bought out anymore. It is not a saleable business like it once was. It just isn't, because I could come in and take all of your agents tomorrow if I had the best convincing story. Right. And so that is not a saleable business anymore like it used to be. So really having those conversations, if you're the independent broker watching us, have that conversation with yourself first and really ask yourself the what ifs and how are you planning to retire? What is your actual goal for retirement? And what's your plan for these agents now, right? That are all still with you at your brokerage. What are they going to do if you want to retire and go or move to Florida or, you know?
What are a couple of your big wins for your agents that come to the top of your mind?
Big wins?
Yeah.
Like with the model?
Yeah. What changed with some of their businesses because of what they have available to them now that they didn't have in your independent brokerage?
Yeah. So it's really, really cool to watch what's happened with my group. And I don't pay a whole lot of attention to numbers as we have described. Like I'm more of a holistic person. And so when we started doing these meetings at EXP, they've allowed some of us that have broker sized organizations now to see the numbers of our group. The numbers of my group actually blew me away. And I did a post about it because I could not believe how productive my group was in 2022. It shocked me. In fact, we were so productive that if we were ranking in state broker models, and I have access to seeing like Minnesota brokers. So that's what I compare it against. And that's where I'm at. And that's where I would have been. We would have been the 6th most productive office brokerage franchise in the whole state. And that's saying something because in Minnesota, we have the number 1 and the number 3 RE/MAX franchise holders here. And we also have a big, huge brokerage here called Edina Realty, which is like impenetrable. And so for me to like have production numbers like that and having built that in 3 short years, where some of those brokers have spent a lifetime working on building that, is insane. And that's not me building it. That's my agents building it. I only have 24 agents on my front line, and I do a lot of handholding with them, and we are very tight knit. And those agents are the ones now that have grown and benefited and flourished into something, and their agents and so on, all the way down, right? And, people can make fun of us and call us a pyramid scheme or whatever, but every brokerage has that model. There's a broker at the top. There's an owner at the top of every single brokerage, right? And it doesn't end with me, luckily, for my agents. I have a sponsor and he has a sponsor and he has a sponsor, right? And so they've gotten, some of their wins are having more people to be able to pour into them, having other avenues to be able to find information. One of the coolest pieces about EXP is, yes, there's organizations and stuff, but just like what's happening here on this podcast, we cross lines and help each other and pour into each other, because that is the personality that's attracted to this model. It's one that wants to collaborate, that wants to mastermind, that wants to share, that wants to give back, that wants to make an impact. That's who's at this brokerage. And so because of that, and because people are surrounded by like-minded people, I'm seeing referrals being passed back and forth around the country, which is so cool. I'm seeing trainings happen. My agents are sharing with each other of like what's working in like the Dallas market for their open house strategy, what's working up here for events. I'm really in love with holding events and throwing events, just in general. And so I've trained my agents now to do that. And now they're getting to do that and hold events and give back into the real estate community. And so it's more than just like, okay, yeah, we sold a lot of houses this last year. It's like, no, how did we have an impact? Who did we impact? What's our impact going to be for this next year? How do we grow that? And the meaningful relationships that are coming out of it, right? And another win too, that is one that's not spoken about very much, but when you're a team leader or a broker and an agent leaves you at a traditional model, that relationship is severed. It is like a knife into the back. And anybody that's been doing this long enough has had that experience. It's awful. It's horrible. I, for one, have had that happen to me back when I was running my team, and I did not want to have that experience again. EXP is a saving grace for relationships within real estate. Like the teammate that I had, at some point, he was an aggressive salesperson. He was going to need to go out and do his own thing, because that's the typical lifespan of a teammate is 2 years, right? And most of us are very entrepreneurial and self-driven, and most of us are not going to stay on a team for the life of our business. The same thing with staying at a brokerage, right? And so this model is the one thing where that teammate, they go through the revolving door, they say goodbye on the team, but they stay with your group, and you're still in a financial alignment, and your relationship is saved. And so it's not only is it giving agents more opportunity for collaboration, but it's saving the relationships between the agents, and it's fostering playing nice on the playing field with each other. And that for me is probably one of the biggest wins.
Well, that's a great point, because in this model, you want your people to outgrow your team and start their own team, their own business, and start their own, branding, et cetera. And actually even pass you, and you're okay with that. In the old models, if they leave, they're gone, and they're your competitor.
Yeah.
But here, they leave your team, but you don't ever lose a relationship, because you're still connected. And even if they move to outside the state or country or whatever it might be, as long as they stay in EXP, you always have that relationship. That's great.
Yeah, you can safely train your competition here.
That's right.
I mean, it's the truth. You can safely train your competition at this model, and it's going to be okay, because if they do better, you do better.
That's exactly right. Well, that's awesome. A couple last questions, and I know we got to go, but where do you see yourself in 5 years with your business?
Oh, did you listen to my story? I have no idea. I honestly don't know. That's the fun part about this, is like anything, the sky is the limit with it, right? I mean, we could end up having agents around the world. We could go move anywhere around the world. Although I'm pretty tried and true Minnesotan, like it's going to be really hard to get me out of the state borders. But what's more exciting for me is to see where my agents are going to go with it, right? At this point, because I'm pretty happy. Like I don't need a whole lot in life to be happy. I am very spirit-based, and for me, my faith is everything. And so what I'm really excited to watch is where are my agents going to go with it, and how can I help them do that, and what's going to happen for them? Because I think we are in a new way of doing business. Like, I don't know how much you've been paying attention about this Chat GPT and AI, and everybody's getting all workshop over this, right? To be at a tech company at this time in our lifetimes is amazing. And that's really how I view EXP, is we're at a technology forward company. And so who knows what's going to happen in 5 years? I mean, we might have flying cars by then and be able to like hop all around the country and sell wherever you want. And I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Well, that's awesome. Very last question I always ask at the very end is, if you're a book reader, what's your all-time favorite book you like to recommend, or a movie watcher, what's your all-time movie you like to recommend?
Well, I'm super lame. So I every day I'm very routine in my mornings. I get up at 5 a.m. every morning and have my quiet time in the Bible. And that is my routine. I do it every single day. I never miss a day doing that. But outside of that, I love the book Who Not How. That's been a really big one. And for me, that really describes the experience within EXP, right? It's all about who you're surrounding with and not how, right? The who you have around you. And another great book would be The Freedom Manifesto. That's a one by Brian Carruthers. Great book. If you guys haven't read that one, you definitely should read that one. It's like he wrote it for EXP, but he didn't. Like, he just wrote it about real estate and his journey. And it makes perfect sense once you read it or listen to it. And if you're a skeptic about EXP, you're watching this and you're like, whatever, these people are drinking the Kool-Aid, just read that one or listen to it. It's great. Okay, so books, and then what was the other one? Movie. Oh man, movie. I love movies because I'm a social visual creature. The Hunger Games for me is very relevant in how I view my life. I might see myself as Katniss a lot of days, going around and trying to just fight for things. I love the Hunger Games. I'm a nerd. I love Lord of the Rings. I love a good trilogy, really. I'm going to stick with those.
Awesome.
With those
awesome.
Two. Yeah.
We got a lot more common than I thought. I get up at 5 a.m. every morning to spend quiet time with the Lord as well. And it's cool to hear more of your story and get to know you better. Well, thanks so much for being a guest here on our Financial Freedom Forever podcast. Really appreciate it. This is a testament to our group, right? I mean, you're not in my business, in my network whatsoever. You're one of the influencers that are in our beta group that, talk to the leadership and to the other high level influencers in our company on a weekly basis. And, I'm pretty quiet on those. You don't hear me speak too much. And of course, you're pretty outspoken, which is awesome. And that's the way to get your opinion across. And that's why I wanted you to jump on my podcast and get to know you better. And it's really been great, and I'm looking forward to seeing you at the next live event, or I'll see you on the next influencer meeting Thursday.
Yep, absolutely. Wouldn't miss it.
All right. Have a great day. Thanks for coming.
Yep. Thank you.
Right.
Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Listen to what our business partners are saying about our FFF group.
Being a part of our 3Fs group with my luxury brand, to be able to go out there and know that we have such like-minded, amazing, dedicated, hardworking, and passionate people, that knowledge and that ability to be able to reach out and someone to answer within minutes of me having any questions that I might have has been just unbelievably amazing. And I'm so happy to be a part of this group.
What I love most about the Financial Freedom Forever group is the culture of helping and the amount of resources that are available out there for agents who want to grow their business. You can access 4 or 5 different training sessions per week is awesome.
I believe if you surround yourself with like-minded people that are doing 10 to 15, 20 times more than me and you put together, we all bring each other up and bring our businesses to the next level and our lives. To learn more about how to partner with us, go to partnerwithandre.com or click the link below, and let's have a conversation.